is one night away from opening night for the 2025-2026 NBA season. And right out of the gate, the Houston Rockets are going to be battle tested as they're already going through some injury adversity to one of the best players on the team, Fred VanVleet, an NBA All-Star, an NBA champion, and one of the leaders in the locker room for the Houston Rockets. He goes down before the preseason begins and he's out indefinitely with an ACL tear. So right out of the gates for the NBA season, we're going to see how well the Houston Rockets can handle this adversity. And I think they're going to be more than equipped for it because they've done such a great job, and not just a great job, but a cerebral job of building their roster over these last 3 or 4 years. And they've done that by hitting on all 3 facets of, or I should say 4 facets when it comes to making your franchise better. They've done a great job in free agency, bringing in the right free agents to help the young players that they've been drafting. They've done a great job with some of the trades that they've made for this team. And then their biggest pot of gold since their rebuild, since the post-Harden era, the picks that they've been selecting in the NBA draft. They've been doing such a fantastic job. And then the 4th area is just developing these young guys. All of these guys have been making such great strides since they've come into the NBA, and it's allowed the Houston Rockets to do something so rare, is that they were able to be a competitive team while still also bolstering their future. And they did that with that James Harden trade in the 2020-2021 NBA season. And this could be a very vital trade for this upcoming year, because that trade right there got the Houston Rockets their Fred VanVleet mold. You look on this roster, they already have that player that can fill that role immediately, and that's Reed Sheppard. And a lot of people forget that Reed Sheppard, he was a lottery pick, and looking at his situation is very tricky. But going back to that trade, because if you look at the year before Reed Sheppard was drafted and we look at the Houston Rockets, that's when they started to flash their potential. The first year with Fred VanVleet and the first year with Dillon Brooks, they finished with a 41-41 record. After the last couple of years, they were in that, that rebuilding phase where you're really bad. So this made the Houston Rockets, they didn't look like a team that needed a number 3 overall pick. But due to that trade, Reed Sheppard, he was swapped. So that trade went to the Houston Rockets, but it should have been to the Brooklyn Nets. So he's coming into a situation that most number 3 overall picks don't come into, because when you're drafted that high, 9 times out of 10, at the bare minimum, you're going to be a starter on the team. But obviously, with the season that the Houston Rockets had before, the way that those guys were playing, the potential that they flashed, and then next season, they obviously followed it up by winning 50 games. So we have this lottery pick that got drafted to a team that was on the birth of becoming a playoff team. And at his position, he's having to compete with Fred VanVleet, and he's also having to compete with Aaron Holiday, 2 veteran guards on a team that's trying to get to the playoffs. So for Reed Sheppard, that rookie year, that's the hardest year in the league, because you're making that transition from the collegiate level to the pros. And his situation, he just didn't have that many rooms for the errors and then to the growing pains. So Ime Udoka with the postseason on his mind. And like we said, the Houston Rockets they're a young team, a lot of young talent, but we all know it is competitive for minutes over there. And if Ime Udoka feels like you're not playing well, he has no problem sitting anybody down. We've seen him do that on numerous occasions. But it put the Houston Rockets in this fantastic position, because most teams, when at the beginning of the season you have your starting point guard go down, Fred VanVleet, an NBA champion, it's kind of time to hit the panic button. And the Houston Rockets, they have oh my God, can't wait to talk about with you guys. Talk about Reed Sheppard alone with the Houston Rockets, how much he can benefit them this season. But they have many different ways that they can fill this void with Fred VanVleet, because they just brought over Kevin Durant. Alperen Sengun, the work he put in this summer, I think he's going to become like another offensive hub type of guy. So it's not going to be too much pressure on Reed Sheppard. He's not going to come in and like be a full-time point guard running the offense, which makes it so much better for the Houston Rockets and also makes it so much better for Reed Sheppard. But I think the most important important thing we should do, we should talk about who Reed Sheppard is as a basketball player, his measurements and his skill set. I think that's very important. Looking at Reed Sheppard, he went to the University of Kentucky, only played 1 year at the collegiate level. He stands at 6'2" with a 6'3" wingspan. Now, this is considered this is considered very undersized for an NBA guard, and this is why I said he's a Fred VanVleet mold. Not necessarily the same type of players and the same type of skill set, but they have that same chip on their shoulders as guys that's deemed as undersized players, and they bring a lot of the same traits to the table. So that's why I don't think the Houston Rockets have to be in too much panic, because they already got a guy that's already very similar to the guy that went down. So those are his measurements, and despite being an undersized guard, he has a skill set that makes up for it. And we look at the best part of Reed Sheppard's game is his ability to knock down that three-point shot. And he isn't just a guy that can shoot, but he is a guy that spaces the floor. He creates space. He gravitates guys towards him. Now, at the collegiate level, he shot the fire out of the basketball 52% from the three-point line. That's big time. So he can shoot the three, and this year in the preseason with a more elevated role, playing more and more minutes each game, over his 3 games in the preseason, he did knock down 40% of his three-pointers. And when we look past that knockdown three-point shooting, we also got to look at the way that Reed Sheppard can process the game of basketball. He has a very high basketball IQ, and he has shown the ability to make passes, whether he's making passes within the motion of the offense, processing the floor, and making a smart one more pass, or, making the right decision into taking the open shot. He's a good decision maker. And then he also shown the ability to be a good passer as a ball handler and pick and roll situations, making the right decisions as far as hitting the roll man or hitting guys spotting up. And then looking at him offensively, last but certainly not least, he's really good without the basketball in his hands at the collegiate level. At Kentucky, next to Rob Dillingham, he did play that role as a combo guard. So a lot of cutting, a lot of coming off screens, the dribble handoffs that's so, prominent in today's NBA. He showed the ability to be successful running around without the basketball, springing himself open for three-point shots. So that's who he is on the offensive side of the ball. And despite being 6'2" with the 6'3" wingspan, he still finds a way to be disruptive on the defensive side of the basketball at the University of Kentucky. And so far in the preseason, he has shown the ability to be active with his hands. At Kentucky, he averaged 2.5 stocks per game, and stocks is just blocks and steals put together. So 2.5 blocks and steals combined per game during his 1 year at Kentucky. And it's because he has great anticipatory skills. And then we talked about it, that basketball IQ. When you have a high basketball IQ at any level of the game of basketball, if your opponent doesn't, it could put you at such a high advantage, whether if we just playing pickup, at a rec center, or even if we just playing 2K, if you have a high basketball IQ, it can take you a long way on the basketball court. So Reed Sheppard, his basketball IQ helps him out on the offensive and the defensive side of the ball. And then we talked about that undersized tag that players like him and Fred VanVleet, they get tagged on them. Nobody likes being called too small, and they carry that chip on their shoulder, and he does give it a more dogged effort on the defensive side of the ball. So with all of that being said, Reed Sheppard, he's not the perfect point guard, and we know he still has some things to work on. He definitely can cut the turnovers down. He had a few high turnover games in the preseason. Can work on his shot creation a little bit more too, and then also just his point of attack defense. And I think all of that is going to come along as he develops in the NBA. And that's who Reed Sheppard is as a basketball player. And when I look at the Houston Rockets and the personnel that they have, and some of the struggles that they've had over the last season, he could plug in so well with this team. And I'm just thinking about the biggest thing that's come across my mind is that the Houston Rockets, they have, and they kind of done it over the last couple of years, the point guard by committee, and it does work. And so now they have Kevin Durant, and this makes the offense so much different, because now the Houston Rockets, they have a roster where they have 2 legit offensive hubs. And that offensive hub is just a guy that you can just get the ball to possible, put them in different spots on the court, and the gravity that those guys create is gonna make it work so much easier for the role players around them. So I'm looking at how Reed Sheppard is gonna fit currently with the Houston Rockets, with the personnel on his team. It's gonna fit like a glove. The first thing that we can tie back to Reed Sheppard and connect it to his teammates is that 3-point shooting, and how we talked about how he's not just a shooter, but he's a floor spacer. He's like a gravity type of guy with the way he can knock down the 3-point shot. And it's not just, from standing on the 3-point line, it's from far back, and it's off the catch, and it's off the dribble. He's very comfortable shooting the basketball. And last season, the Houston Rockets, they ranked 23rd place in 3-point shooting efficiency. So just him being out there is going to lead to higher efficient 3-point shots. And then also it's going to open up the paint for guys like Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun. So I think the 3-point shooting is going to be beneficial. And then just the KD coming to the team. And we look at Kevin Durant over these last few years in his career, and then on the years that he's won NBA championships, Kevin Durant has never really been alongside a traditional point guard. These last few years, he's been in high motion offenses where it has been, point guard by committee. We're moving the basketball and we're making the right plays. And Reed Sheppard, this is so great for him because, like we said, even though a point guard went down, he doesn't have to come in and be a full-time point guard because they have Amen Thompson, they have Sengun and KD, who are legit offensive hubs. So he can be more so focused on stretching the floor and then being that guy within the motion offense that's continuously, making the right pass or shooting the basketball when you're supposed to, or cutting to the rim when you're supposed to. The ball court with Sengun, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, they're going to take a lot of pressure off of him. So I'm so excited for this first game of the season. Tomorrow we have the NBA champs against the the reloaded Houston Rockets. It's going to be a great basketball game, and I don't think I'm going to miss a single second of it. So you guys let me know what you think of this video. Comment down below. Can Reed Sheppard fill that void that the Houston Rockets will be missing with Fred VanVleet? And then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man. And that's curtains.